Namaste. Good morning, beautiful souls. Welcome. Mm. This is not an easy card for anyone. And today we're going to talk about I'm going to talk about the death card and what it might mean for a year-long study and deepening an awareness to the sense of finality, but also renewal that we are blessed with in this card. And instead of reading from the poems that I've been reading from, I am going to read you something this morning from last year's Wee Moon Journal. And this offering is called Death Altar. It is by Brittany May Gill. Make space for death in your altar. Collect the bodies of bees and butterflies and beetles, birds even. Let your fruits decay. Pick up the bones and feathers you find, admire them, and take them home. Bury things and dig them up again, to watch how the earth has reclaimed them. Take deep breaths and hold them. Burn things and scatter the ashes of the soil of your plants. Cry. Cry as hard and deep and often as you can, and grieve like it is a community project. Get your family involved. As often as we celebrate life, we ought to dance and sing for the death that has come before and will inevitably come again. If you will give it space, death can make something extraordinarily beautiful on the altar of your life. Wow, that is, shall I read that again? I think I'm going to read it again. This is fantastic. It's called Death Altar. Make space for death in your altar. Collect the bodies of bees and butterflies and beetles, birds even. Let your fruits decay. Pick up the bones and feathers you find. Admire them and take them home. Bury things and dig them up again, to watch how the earth has reclaimed them and take deep breaths and hold them. Burn things and scatter the ashes of the soil of your plants. Cry. Cry as hard and deep and often as you can, and grieve like it is a community project. Get your family involved. As often as we celebrate life, we ought to dance and sing for the death that has come before and will inevitably come again. If you will give it space, death can make something extraordinarily beautiful on the altar of your life. Brittany May Gill, 2021. I was thinking of, I just watched part 3 of the Greek wedding series, My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And while it wasn't a brilliant movie, it was very poignant in places. And I think the honoring of death and death wishes could very much be a theme for this year. And if you are not in a cycle of grief and loss of another this year, then, as this poem suggests, there are many ways to do that. And I have hummingbird wings. It's really something when you find a dead bird and I ask it for an offering, for a feather, for a tail. And we have made fans from dead birds we have found. And I told you a long time ago the story of me on a swing down at the beach, and the swing broke. and I crashed on some rocks. And then as my son and I were climbing back up from the beach, there was a large bird, like a falcon, that had died and crashed. And I thought to myself, wow, what if simultaneously as the swing broke, the falcon fell and died? And so we took a few feathers and we made a cairn for the falcon. And we honored the death of the falcon and we honored that moment. And I just wonder why there is so much discomfort with death. I think this is a brilliant contemplation to have for a year. Now, granted, there are many cultures that do death beautifully. They really know how to honor and celebrate death. And this, of course, is not only about the death of loved ones, but this is the death of, I'm sure there are lots of women who have never celebrated the abortions that they have had, or other little losses that seemed like our culture wants to shove them away, rush them away. Grief is a very real thing that comes back to haunt us. And perhaps this is a year about studying about different stages of grief, giving yourself permission to move through the loss of a home. I mean, when I sold my family home, my mother's home, my goodness, that was so, yeah, it just I can still feel it in my heart. So there are many losses in any given year. Some, of course, more impactful than others. And I think this is a wonderful year to learn to honor these cycles. I find it kind of poignant. So yesterday I was talking about the Hanged Man, and in the death card, which is a bat, and in the death card, it's almost as if we are looking up. Oh, Donnie, you had that same experience. Yeah, deep, deep. The selling of your parents' home. I'm wondering if this is the bat, and the bat is upright in this card, and we're looking at the skeleton of the bat. Perhaps, I just had another idea. Amber, my dog, brought home a skull. I think it was a deer skull, and it still had, it wasn't completely a skull yet. There was still the dogs loved it, actually. I know that's a bit morbid. But I was thinking about dogs that go missing, or cats, and people's pets that go missing, and how some people have those posters up for months and months and months and months. And granted, once in a while they are found, but more often than not, they become part of the cycle of life, of the life of another animal. And maybe an awareness or supporting a friend in the loss of a pet or the letting go of a pet is something that might arise as well too. And I think this is so powerful. What I was saying about that, I just think this is interesting, that if this is the skeleton of a bat, that it's like the lessons of the hangman now are complete and free. And perhaps if you did have a hanged man year last year, you would sit in contemplation of this new perspective and how you may grieve differently or let go of something differently. And I want to say good morning. Good morning. We have somebody new on the channel here. Welcome to Shamakya. I'm not sure if we've met before. Welcome. Namaste. Good morning, Casey. And I also want to say thank you to Gurgana for joining the channel. Thank you very much. Good morning to, or good evening to Amelia. Namaste. And Donna. And Casey says, our tears are the moisture that seeds of our hearts desire. Okay, can't quite put that together, but that's okay. Our tears are the moisture that the seeds of our hearts desire and they need in order to manifest. That's really beautiful. Cry as often as you can. That poem was beautiful. It's my card of the year. Yeah, I think it's, this is good. This is good. Now, the death card, depending on the deck you're working with, often death faces to the right. And this is a very interesting card in terms of, are we reflecting to the past or are we reflecting to the future? And I've spent a little bit of time talking about facings and the way that different languages and different cultures read right to left and left to right. And the way that English is written, we would assume that the past is behind death and the future is ahead. But if you are working with a Golden Dawn based deck that is strictly Golden Dawn, then you will know that the past is more than likely to the right. And so in this particular death card, the past is here and the bird is also looking ahead. I think that's the whole idea of reflection is very powerful here. Now, this is connected, of course, to the astrological sign of Scorpio, if you're reading it that way. And this asks us to indeed perhaps look at and complete, having this as a card for the year. Remember, if you are working with 11, I'm going to do this all the time. If you're working with justice, you are working with karmic reset. And so perhaps this honoring of death will really help to bring something home, help to bring something to closure. If you are working with strength as your number 8 theme for the year, that may be exactly what you need to endure deep contemplations like this, and an understanding that in exploring death, you will find a strength you didn't know that you have. Okay, so all of that is highly significant here. To be comfortable with death, perhaps to work with friends who are uncomfortable, so much discomfort with death. I have faced death so many times. I don't know if you ever get truly comfortable with it. I can't imagine being working in a hospital full time, being a doctor or a surgeon or something like that, or working in a funeral home. If you really, really wanted to take this to another level, just think of the kind of volunteer work that you could do or even taking a part-time job at a place where death is a daily occurrence. You know, these cards that come up, and so I want to go back to what I was saying about Scorpio and the Scorpio journey. Perhaps exploring your history, your discomfort, the shadow side of death that you are challenged with. It's likely. I mean, we all just don't, dance through death, most of us. And I think it's important. It's a really important theme. It sits very near the middle of the major arcana. Um, and whether numerologically, so there's different systems of working with numbers in the tarot. And in the Marseille system, this is corresponding to 3, to the Empress. And so the idea that in death we have life, we have rebirth, and the Empress represents that sense of birth and fertility. Often when people are working with Golden Dawn, they're working with a reduction of numbers. So they would add 1 and 3 of death and get number 4 and bring in correspondences of the Emperor, finding new foundations and strength and security, indeed, through this new part of life that they are building. I can't believe I don't have the Margaret Peterson on the table, and I was going to get it, but I didn't have time this morning. The Margaret Peterson Tarot, and with all of your cards of the year, I would suggest you take every death card out of every deck that you have available to you and have a good look at it. But what I like about the Margaret Peterson Tarot is that we see the relationship of the cosmos with death, and that death is part of every aspect of life. I mean, think about the idea of the death of stars and just our distant relationship with stars, and how we don't actually see a star until it is dead. Those sort of things. That's what I'm thinking of. Like it's a wonderful kind of expansion. Now, if you are focused on the Scorpio energy and the phases or the evolution of the Scorpio journey from the Scorpion, and perhaps looking at and evaluating where you are in your Scorpio journey. Are you still at that place of reaction? Your stinger is alive, and the way that you navigate and manage is you tend to, sort of lash out irrationally. I smell, because that's from that line just cracked me up. The children's movie some years ago. I think it was one of the Home Alone movies. Maybe not. I'm not sure. Or Santa Claus, I think. Santa Claus. The Scorpion. I find it fascinating, when the sadhus, they go into the caves in northern India, or, people go to retreat and they go into the caves, these places where scorpions crawl around in the dark. And they intentionally go there knowing that there are scorpions, truly possibly facing death. Let's go to Amelia's latter comment here. As a theologian, I have worked a lot with things related to death, so it isn't a scary or discomforting theme, but for me it is more like the beginning of something beautiful. And I think as well, too, that the process of closure, the process of honoring the death, honoring a life well lived, it breaks my heart when people say that, oh yeah, I don't want to have a celebration of life. Yeah, just forget about me. It costs too much money. We can still honor you in a very inexpensive way. We don't need expensive gravestones or celebrations. There's things that can be done quite simply to let those that are still here honor your life and honor your greatness. But going back to the Scorpio thing, so there's this scorpionic type of behavior. Also, the snake is part. There's a few different ways to look at this. So scorpion, snake, or serpent, and then eagle and or phoenix. And the snake is this such a, I think observing the snake this year would be really good as well too. Where you encounter snakes, what is going on when a snake crosses your path? Big symbol of transformation. This is a big transformation year for you. The eagle, I talked a bit about last time with the birds and the eagle view and the idea of visionaries and becoming the witness of your life. And then the phoenix symbology, of course, is one of understanding we must completely die to be reborn. Symbolically, we do that every yoga class. I think that's really something. There's lots of symbols in these cards, and I would suggest that if you're doing readings with you may want to choose a I mean, this is such a beautiful card. One of my favorite death cards is so simple in the textured tarot. And then there are other ones that are very poignant and get us to look at um, beings that are all around us. Like in Puppy Palin's Everyday Enchanted Tarot, you see spirits in the background and you see a grandmother comforting a grandchild, and the idea of generations, honoring generations. So if you don't have an ancestral altar either, that might be a component of your altar that you want to work on and to build this year. Classically, Scorpio is ruled by Mars, and more contemporarily by Pluto. So the influence of these planets, if you follow astrology at all, will be interesting for you to watch. I'm going to draw your cards now. Take a breath. Fully ground. I'm also thinking of the because we can watch a whole life cycle of a healing process, observing a wound, and I don't know how that might play into this theme, but it's interesting how many of the cards in the tarot bring up similar lessons. Okay. Let these cards inspire, but more than that, I feel the drive of Mars wanting to push each and every one of you through something bigger this year. Be brave. Hold that martial energy in its highest frequency to clear, to transform, to wander deeply into the energy of death in 2024. As always, we ask these messages be in the highest. I feel like I have an odd card in here that doesn't fit. I do. Let me move that. That's interesting. I had a card from another deck. Different size. All the versions of the Wild Unknown are slightly different. Okay. And I will start with Mars. Six of Cups, Seven of Cups, Mother of Cups. Six of Cups, Seven of Cups, Mother of Cups. The moon is in the moon position. So the Pisces card is in the moon position. Father of Wands is in the Venus position opposed to the Six of Pentacles in the Mars position. Mercury is the Ace of Wands. And then the Earth is the Emperor. So that's interesting. The Emperor has showed up here from what I said earlier. Okay. So let's look at the expansion and contraction position with the Jupiter and Saturn energy, both water. Both water. I'm also intrigued with this being in the Jupiter position, the Seven of Cups, and the Ace of Wands in the Mercury position. I'm thinking about how what sort of creative expansion may be available for you this year. Sevens, this card, I think often we interpret it quickly in quite a negative way, but I think there's a dreaming component to the Seven of Cups that feels important. Letting your mind wander a bit, going into your dreams. I think dreams can be very healing when we're wandering through the waters of Scorpio. And how does Mars respond to this? Mars is saying in a more practical way that we need to take care of the give and take. And for me, the most obvious direct relation here is in so imagine we are out in nature and we do find a dead bird. Well, what are we going to give to the earth if we take the bird? I know we're honoring the life cycle of the bird and the bird's spirit has been given. But this is like going out and, picking sage or foraging for nettle at the edge of the forest. I think this idea of reciprocity is so very important. Mm-hmm. Namaste, Patrice. Welcome. You can watch the replay. So, yeah, I would encourage, and it's really poignant. I'm sorry, I need to sign off and come back and start the second component and dive deeper into this. But this is, and my throat is okay. What do I want to say? Well, I want to close this with one good thought here. Expand. Don't be afraid to wander into can I say that? Don't be afraid to wander into the mystic in a way that you haven't before. Perhaps this is a year of deepening your connection and your comfort with your spirit guides. And finding a new voice with that as well too. Not this could also be in relation to those that are around you, those that are not comfortable with that sort of work. And as I was saying in the, hopefully that thread is still there. As I was saying in the poem, as I was reading in the poem, the author of the poem suggested sharing these practices with your family. And I think that in order for you to really drink in the richness of this theme this year, doing it together with loved ones would be just amazing. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to leave you with that. And if you want to, I'm going to go a lot deeper into this. And if you would like to join me in part 2, I will be there in just a few minutes. Okay. Thank you for being here and part of this series. I'm loving how these readings are evolving this year. So thank you. See you soon. Namaste.